Love Liberty Radio version 4.0. Prepare for launch.
OTC is go.
Pancapus is go.
PTC is go.
LPS is go.
Houston flight is go.
Pilot go.
STM is go.
Safety con is go.
STU is go.
LRD is go.
SRO is go. CDI is go.
Launch Director, NTD, our launch team is ready to proceed at this time.
99, proceeded, 3, 2, 1, ignition. Right away, Houston.
Consequences so severe, so pull your trigger quickly, dear. Our patriots are acting up, let's punish them with fear. Hey, hey!
Hey, it's Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. And you know, I just realized, and I've noticed this a few times in the past, but I realized that I do not introduce myself enough. I introduce the show. I tell you where you can find the show. I will mention myself by name every now and then, but, you know, it seems as though most podcasts and most radio shows, at the very beginning of the show, the host will introduce himself or herself. And I've noticed that I've not done that. And I think part of the reason I've not done that is because, to me, the podcasts that I do are a lot bigger than just me. Although I do introduce myself on the daily newscast that I do, the FPP Radio News. And I think I do that because, you know, like most newscasts, they'll sort of start off by saying, this is this newscast, and I am your host, and my name is. And so I do that. So at the beginning of the FPP Radio News, the ones that are produced in Keene, New Hampshire, it begins, from Keene and the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world. This is Darryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for fill-in-the-blank day, price of silver, price of gold, price of Bitcoin, and get into the news stories. And now, I realized, because I listen to a good many podcasts, not a lot, but I think I've got probably a dozen podcasts in my podcatcher. I personally use Podcast Addict because I like the way that it works. You can search for podcasts. You don't have to know the RSS feed URL, which makes it incredibly easy to find things. So if you know, like, this, I think this is the name of the show, you can search, and then here's all the things that come up with that, and here's episodes. So if you just want, like, one episode of a show, it makes it easy to download just an episode. You can subscribe to the entire thing, and that's something else that I don't do. I don't ask people to subscribe to my podcast. You can do that using any podcatcher. Again, I personally use Podcast Addict. And one thing that I like about Podcast Addict is it allows me to listen to the podcast at a faster than normal speed. So instead of listening in real time at 1-to-1, you can listen at 1.5, you can listen at 1.8, you can listen at 2, you can listen all the way up to 5. I don't know why anybody would listen all the way up to 5, but you can do that, especially now that I'm intentionally talking faster because I want to emulate the sound of things when they play faster. So if you're listening faster, then, you know, like, that totally just screwed with your brain, and I sincerely do apologize for messing with your brain. You can also slow things down on Podcast Addict to where you listen to things at below 1 speed. And again, I'm intentionally changing the speed of my voice to emulate what it would sound like if you change the speed on Podcast Addict. So I'll go back to speaking normally, and I will introduce myself now 4.5 minutes into this episode. I am your host of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. I am Darryl W. Perry. And, you know, one thing that I've noticed that a lot of good podcasters do, and a lot of good radio hosts do, is they give themselves nicknames. And I've, you know, asked a couple of people, you know, for, you know, suggested nicknames. And the best that I've seen so far, there was, well, Liberty Penguin, something that I already call myself. I forget exactly what the suggestions were, but I will try to find those here momentarily. and throw some of those ideas out. Get your thoughts on, well, what do you think? Should I have nicknames that I give myself? Should I not have nicknames that I give myself? Should I introduce myself at the beginning of every show? And I'm asking because I do want your thoughts on this. You can send those to thoughts@fppradio.com. That's thoughts, as in, things that go through your brain, at fppradio.com. So let's see here. I'm pulling up the suggested nicknames from Roger Paxton. He's one of the fans, and that's something else I don't mention a lot. You can join the fans program. Go to fans.fppradio.com to learn more or to sign up. See the perks you get, like ad-free versions of the show. So Roger, who is one of the fans, he's also an executive producer of the show. He suggested persistent news hound, liberty freak, and the voice of peace, love, and liberty. So what do you think? Should I introduce every show with, this is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com. I'm your host, Darryl W. Perry, a persistent news hound, a liberty freak, and the voice of peace, love, and liberty. Send your thoughts. Again, thoughts at fppradio.com. And I do have thoughts that I want to jump into here in the show. But, that's really the way this show works, is it's one big, giant string of thoughts. The stream of consciousness, I believe, is what they call it when you just write down or say anything that pops into your head. Like, here's words, and now I'm saying words, and I don't know what I'm going to say next because I'm not thinking at all about what I'm about to say. And that's pretty much how I do the show. Although I do kind of think about, here's things that I want to touch on. Here's my show prep. And I definitely want to touch on the show prep. I want to cover the show prep. And because, a couple months ago, I changed the focus to, instead of being a news-oriented show, it's a more personal growth. Here's how to help you be a better you because I'm becoming a better me. And I want to, help Liberty people wind up being better versions of themselves. Because how are we ever going to have liberty in our lifetime if we don't actually live a decent lifetime? If we are not having good lives, how can we expect other people to adopt our good ideas? So, I will jump into version 4.0 here in just a moment. Stay tuned to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
I endorse Darryl W. Perry. There is no other candidate who matches Darryl when it comes to representing what the Libertarian Party stands for.
Perry's principle will get the message of freedom and true libertarianism out there further than it has ever been in quite some time. My official endorsement has to go to Darryl W. Perry as the most principled candidate in this race, hands down.
Learn more about the campaign at darrellwperry.com. I'm Darryl W. Perry, and I approve this message.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up in any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. That's getcell411.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Version 4.0. Jumping in to actually something science-y. And yes, this actually is real science. It's not that weird thing of the IFL science where it's like, here's a picture of Pluto, and everybody's like, yay, science! That's not science, that's the picture. But this is actually real science. The story comes from lifehack.org. Science, headline, Science finds an interesting link between wisdom and heart rates. For those that believe true wisdom comes from the heart, may actually not be far from the truth. A new study has been published in the journal Frontiers in Behavioral Neuroscience that suggests heart rate variation and thinking processes actually work together to create wise reasoning and the understanding of complex situations. What the study involved? The study was carried out by Igor Grossman. Igor. No, not that Igor. Igor Grossman, a professor of psychology at the University of Waterloo. Also, not that Waterloo, in Canada. Professor Grossman from the University of Waterloo in Canada, along with colleagues at the Australian Catholic University, wanted to find out whether or not wisdom has purely to do with cognitive reasoning or if something else was at play. The team used 150 participants from a Sydney university with the average age of 25, and the participants were asked to take part in several tasks, including tasks that involve social reasoning and attributional judgment. The participants were required to give their opinions on subjects they felt strongly about from two perspectives. The first person, in a personal manner, and the third person, as a critical observer. They were then monitored for their resting heart rate variability throughout the task using an electrocardiogram, also known as an ECG, and all experiments were conducted during low physical activity. Heart rates vary naturally at any given time, even when we're sitting and resting. The variations between heartbeats are directly linked to the nervous system's controlling ability of organ function. However, for various reasons, some people's heart rates vary much more than others. The results. What the researchers found from the results of the experiment was surprising. The participants who discussed the topic with a third-person perspective and possessed a greater heart rate variation were found to have a wiser and less biased view than those that had a smaller heart rate variation. So what I am reading here and what I am understanding, and this is just my understanding, is that if your heart rate varies throughout the day, whether you're doing things or not, then you generally will be wiser and less biased than people whose heart rate stays closer. So the wider the variation of heart rate, the wider the variation of resting heart rate specifically, the wiser someone is. The narrower the variation of resting heart rate, in some cases, the narrower the mind of the individual. However, they say this changed when the first-person perspective was used, where they discovered that there was no indication of a link between heart rate variation and wiser judgment. So the variation or the correlation, rather, is only noticeable when the people are speaking in the third person or with a third-person perspective. What does this mean? And this is probably what you're asking me. Darryl, what the hell is this all about? Well, this is the first study to show that the physiology of the heart, and in particular heart rate variations, are related to less biased, wiser judgment and reasoning. It has already been discovered through previous studies that people with a higher heart rate variation tend to have a better ability in the use of memory. And remember, we talked about memory last week, and I told you that I have a very poor one on some things. And I don't think I mentioned, and I probably should not mention, because I know my dad listens to the show, and Dad, what I'm about to say is not meant to worry you, but my short-term memory has gotten worse recently. And again, I think I mentioned this on Friday. I don't know if it's because my sleep patterns have been screwed up because I've been doing a lot of traveling and a lot of extra working with the presidential campaign, but my short-term memory has gotten worse. And I think part of it could be related to the many concussions that I've had, where short-term memory problems are not uncommon for people that have had as many brain injuries as I have had. And that's what a concussion is. A concussion is a brain injury. It's a TBI, traumatic brain injury. So, like you might hear people talk about TBI. Well, TBI is a concussion. It's just a different name for it. But anyway, so I don't know if I should be worried in a medical sense of like maybe my brain is not functioning as well as it should, or if, once I wind up getting back to a regular pattern to where I'm not traveling every weekend, that my short-term memory will get back to being, as normal as it was for me. And I don't know if any of the people that I've interacted with recently are listening to the show, but there have been several people that I have seen recently, and I introduced myself. Hi, I'm Darryl. I don't think we've ever met before. And they're like, yeah, we met just a couple of weeks ago. Oh, sorry? There was one person said that, and this was a couple of years ago, but they said that we met at a Porcupine Freedom Festival in Lancaster, New Hampshire, either last summer or the summer before, and apparently we had a fairly lengthy conversation. I have no memory that I ever met this person, and I don't know if I would recognize this person if I were to walk across them again. I might be like, hi, I'm Darryl. Nice to meet you. And I realized, like that sounds horrible, but it's not an intentional thing. It's, like this something with my brain not working right, and part of it is because not the last concussion, but like the one that has caused me to have a permanent headache for almost 5 years. At that concussion, I had an MRI, and they found some damage to the cerebellum. And apparently that damage is consistent with that of a stroke, and the doctor said whatever improvement I made 6 months after the concussion is probably all the improvement that I would make as far as my cognitive stuff. But, I'm able to live a normal life. I'll get back into this article here momentarily. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
During the 2013 Porcupine Freedom Festival, Davy Barker presented an idea for a renegade psychological experiment. Since then, he has refined his idea and put his plan and research into writing. He explains, "We aim to show the world beyond a shadow of a doubt that power corrupts absolutely and corrupt authority deserves no obedience." Authoritarian Sociopathy is available from Amazon.com, all major bookstores, and now available as an audiobook. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at weusecoins.com. That's weusecoins.com.
You're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, online at fppradio.com.
So before I jump back into the article, I need to make sure that I mention one of our sponsors. Yeah, I'm at least able to remember that, right? I'm able to remember that I need to tell you about Spend a Bit. Why do I need to tell you about Spend a Bit? Well, Spend a Bit is a way that you can keep your money in the free market, assuming, after all, that you use free market money. You do use Bitcoin as an alternative in this fiat-centric world, right? If you're not familiar with Bitcoin, I suggest you go over to bitcoin.com to learn more. Get started. Find a good wallet to use. There's several different ones. There's ones that you can use online. You can download things to your smartphone. But definitely, if you're not familiar with Bitcoin, go to bitcoin.com, learn about Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is kind of the future of money, and the future is now. And you can buy things with Bitcoin, and that's why you need Spend a Bit. Spend a Bit is a search engine for things you can buy with Bitcoin. So go to spendabit.fppradio.com. Do a search, because Spend a Bit aggregates millions of products from thousands of Bitcoin-enabled merchants. Keep your money in the free economy. Spend a bit. Use my affiliate link, spendabit.fppradio.com. And if you're a Bitcoin accepting merchant, like I am, through Free Press Publications, ask about their merchant suite to reach even more customers. Spendabit.fppradio.com. That's spendabit.fppradio.com. Back now to the article about heart rate and wisdom. And specifically, I forget where I sort of jumped the tracks, if you will. Somewhere in here it talked about memory, I think. Maybe. I honestly do not remember where I was in this article. So I might recover a paragraph here. What does this study mean? This is, after all, the first study to show that the physiology of the heart, and in particular heart rate variations, are related to being less biased and having wiser judgment and reasoning. It has already been discovered through previous studies that people with a higher heart rate variation tend to have a better ability in the use of memory. Yes, and this is where I jumped off of the article talking about memory, because we talked about memory last week and ways to improve memory and the importance of having a good memory. And certain parts of the brain make memory easier and other parts make it, if that part of the brain is not working properly, like my cerebellum, then, it can affect memory. And again, the cerebellum damage, nothing to worry about because I'm a completely functioning human adult. I just have short-term memory problems. Back to the article. Professor Grossman explained that the study shows that cognitive ability is not the only element at play when it comes to being wise. Quote, research shows, and I don't know why I'm doing like a hoity-toity British-sounding impression here. The guy's Canadian, but still, research shows that wise reasoning is not exclusively a function of the mind and cognitive ability. We found that people who have greater heart rate variability and who are able to think about social problems from a distanced viewpoint demonstrate a greater capacity for wise reasoning. In other words, the people that can sort of put themselves in someone else's shoes, people that are empathetic, pretty much, are going to generally be wiser. And it could be the exact opposite, to where people that are wiser have the ability to put themselves in other people's shoes and to be empathetic. So this is, one of those, which is it? Is it the correlation? Is it the causation? Does being wise allow one to be empathetic? Does being empathetic allow one to be wise? As the wise old owl from the Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop commercial would say, the world may never know. Back now to the article. However, this does not necessarily mean that people with a greater heart rate variation are automatically wiser than others. People need to learn and take time to reflect on altruistic issues that come with third-person perspectives and reasoning in order to achieve the ability to possess wiser judgment. To quote the professor, not the one from Gilligan's Island, but Professor Grossman, to channel their cognitive abilities for wiser judgment, people with greater heart rate variability first need to overcome their egocentric viewpoints. Either way, the study is an interesting insight into the relationship between physiology and cognitive understanding, which will no doubt lead the way to further research into how the heart's functioning really does impact the mind. And again, this is something that I think a lot of libertarians or liberty-minded people, liberty-oriented people, anarchists, voluntarists, whatever term it is that you want to use to describe people that fall within that libertarian quadrant, to where they believe that the maximum role of government is protection of life, liberty, and property. The vast majority of people within that sphere, that quadrant, that circle, whatever shape you want to use, they look a lot of, well, this is how things need to be. This is what other people need to do. Other people need to leave me alone. I should be free to be irresponsible. True, but true liberty is all about responsibility, and if you're not personally responsible now, why should I trust you to be responsible in the future? Therefore, you need to be a little wiser, right? Something to think about. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio.
Are you sick of government lackeys who say you didn't build that? Are you tired of elitists who think you need a government permission slip for everything? Everything you do is an A to B conversation, and the government should see their way out of it. Create true free markets by adopting the BIPCOT No Government License. The BIPCOT No Gov license allows use or modification of any product, service, or software except by governments or government agents. Go to BIPCOT.org. That's Bravo, India, Papa, Charlie, Oscar, Tango.org.
In 1999, Darryl W. Perry began a search for traditional values, which led him down a path to the ideas of liberty. He tells the story in A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. Of the book, Dr. Brian Sovereign says, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes I think it's crazy, but it's always authentic. Find A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty by Darryl W. Perry on Facebook, read reviews on Amazon, ask for A Rebel's Journey wherever books are sold, or visit arebelsjourney.com.
Hi, this is Davi Barker from ShinyBadges.com, and you're listening to Peace, Love, Liberty Radio with Darryl W. Perry.
Hey, we're here in the closing moments of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Don't forget, every Wednesday I answer your questions. This Wednesday, I will actually be traveling, so I'm recording the Ask Me Anything tomorrow. Shh, it's a dirty little secret. Don't tell anybody. So if you have a question, send that over to me right now at ama@fppradio.com. I do have a couple of good questions from the live AMA that I did this past Saturday on Reddit that I will pull over to answer during the Ask Me Anything episode this week. That, again, I'm recording a day early, but I'm not releasing it to you until Wednesday. That is, unless you're a member of the Fans program. So this is going to be the very first time that members of the Fans program have gotten exclusive pre-release content. I have done things, like if you join the Fans program, you get the audio version of my latest book, A Rebel's Journey, My Path to Liberty. So that's something that you can get, but you don't have to be a member of the Fans program to get the audio book. You don't have to be a member of the Fans program to get an autographed copy of the physical book. But you do have to be a member of the Fans program to get commercial-free versions of this podcast as well as the daily newscast that I do. And, again, for the first time ever, fans will get an exclusive pre-release version of something. So, again, you can join the Fans program at fans.fppradio.com. That's fans.fppradio.com. And, again, the Ask Me Anything. Send those questions, ama@fppradio.com. And because today is a Monday, I found an article. Well, by find, I mean it was sent to me in an email. It is 10 positive phrases that will surely get your day started and propel you towards achieving your goals and desires. And they say that you should begin your Monday with these. And because today is Monday, let's do this. And that's actually the first one. Well, a slight variation. I can get this done. No matter what it is, tell yourself, I can get this done. And these are basically, these self-affirmations. Remember they made fun of the guy, Stuart Smiley, on Saturday Night Live back in the 90s. I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. So say these things to yourself. I can get this done. I am a good person. I can reach out for help when I need it. And this is one that a lot of people struggle with. I define my future and am responsible for the great things that will happen to me. Life goes on. I accept myself. I have achieved great accomplishments in the past. Today, I will celebrate me. Fighting for something means that it is worth something great. I feel alive, and I'm healthy. This is Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. See you Wednesday.
The podcasts of FPP Radio are licensed under Copyright. We believe that copying is a form of flattery and do not abide by the copyright laws. Those laws serve to restrict the flow of ideas, which no one can really own. Copying is an act of love. Love is not subject to law. If you enjoy the show, consider joining the Fans program and get perks like ad-free versions of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio and FPP Radio News. To learn more or to join the Fans program, visit fans.fppradio.com.